Okay, now people can hopefully hear me. Yeah, oh boy, that tends to happen. Uh, okay. Now I'm just doing a stream of a bit of behind the scenes work that I tend to do. Well, that of course I tend to do. Oh, oh no. Oh, that's what I did. That was a mistake. I already had the neckline, so I didn't need the neckline. Hello. Just I'm going just showing some behind the scenes work because I'm updating the models for the upcoming series a bit, so they're gonna increase in size at least 2 times, and the outlines are gonna become a bit thinner, and well, I'll be able to do more with them. Yeah. This one doesn't have anything yet, so now we need to start creating little Ferdinand's little outfit, which is made under, well, was made under slightly different rule, well, in a slightly different program, but yeah, okay. Now it's always an interesting challenge to try and make outfits for that sort of fit the time period and styles and everything in these within the rules of these models. which is which I mean, when I started making these, it was a just a very simple idea, and I mean, you could sort of get away with it in the early medieval period where uh, I mean, where style is a bit less distinct and very mostly unknown. But as you go on, you need to start putting in more and more distinct layers and distinct styles and things that started to appear. For instance, like the tunics and everything that just starts in the Renaissance period that do sort of this multicolored thing. Though I think I stole that mostly from Henry VIII. I mean, you can't really see that in contemporary outfits and pictures of those sorts of things because they tended to dress dark. Especially Ferdinand and the Spanish style tended to be quite dark, well, it was dark, very dark colors at the time period, and it's sort of or some things may have just washed out a bit. Oh, this is just PaintNet right now. But I mean, even though like a lot of people, it's the sort of the problem when you get into distinct phases of style and things is that, well, it doesn't really work when people start wearing the same things and looking the same, and your sort of narrative creation depends on characters looking distinct enough in a very similar shape. And well, they need to be not instantly, but they need to be sort of recognizable through the colors of who they are, or at least who they might be aligned with, or they need to look extremely distinct. So I tended to use... Oh, yeah, I mean, you get used to it after years, but I've debated getting a proper... I've debated getting proper digital drawing tools, but just never get around to it. Eh, it's... First it was, I think, Paint 3D, then it's also Paint Net and a bit of Krita now. Uh, when I'm... Well, it depends on what I need to do, because they'll handle things very differently. Especially when it comes to like these lines and how many points you get and how they handle. Now this is a bit easy. This is a bit easy because I already have the previous model to base the outline on. So I can do Ferdinand nicely here, following the old model. And this is going to be his basic outline, which is then gonna get reused for the different outfit for different situations. So we're just going to combine all this, and we can get rid of old Ferdy here, and move new Ferdinand here. Now we are gonna color this in at some point. Just need a... Gonna save the basic outline to the side. I mean, I use portraits, and it's a slightly different process from this because I use portraits and those sorts of things. There's also plenty of books and resources that have like compilations of, well, not compilations, but that have uh, different clothes that would be in use and those sorts of things. So I try to model the outfits and everything on like the difficult part is adjusting the outfit, the model to the outfit. Uh, uh, Tends to take sometimes and tends to be a bit of a headache. The hardest part at times is the hair, because you get the hair has different effect when viewed from different angles. So it doesn't always fit as neatly into things as I would like it. Same things with sort of some of the outfit pieces, like the collars or the... How far does the collar go, or how do you do the shoulders in a model that's pretty much just a straight line? Well, I sort of find a solution on a case-by-case basis, because some things need to look distinct, and like if you get into like the Napoleon series, I tended to like do the people tend to sadly be nothing but neck in some cases, but I sort of did the epaulets and things by doing like a little partition here and then coloring it in a gold color or red color or something that was there. But usually when it comes to historical figures like Ferdinand here, you base it on an outfit that they very commonly wore, so to say. So well, I base on an outfit that they very commonly wore, so I sometimes do either I base it on a outfit from a famous portrait of them, or I try to do some sort of a compromise outfit between the different elements that can show up in places. It does. I just somehow prefer doing. It does. I just need to. For some reason, I prefer doing this, painting it like this instead of doing this. So I just need to transfer the layer to there, and that's pretty much the same effect. I just, for some reason, I prefer painting it in. It's like just instincts to do that. Which is a bit weird, but, well, not weird, but it's interesting. Uh, now Now the interesting thing about this outfit that when I made it was that Ferdinand's collar was always was darker because I sort of wanted it to be a reminder of his sort of Spanishish origins. Now the slight problem with the paint bucket is that I do need to readjust the tolerances because it tends to not fill things up correctly or fully. Yeah, I just need to strengthen the tolerance because it's painting the layer an outline in a layer below, so it shouldn't be visible on the top layer of lines. Oh, I shouldn't have thrown old Ferdinand away. I still need the eyes. Well, the eyes will handle a bit later. Uh, yeah, just normal shoes. And the eyes we will... Nope, hold on. That needs to be its own thing. Now the eyes are tricky. Because sometimes it is a matter of how they're positioned, where they are, or what their size is, especially if you're trying to get a certain expression from them. And they also very much depend on how the hair is placed on the character in order to not look weird or off somehow. It's sort of the problem with even when you go into any game and the character create in a character creator in a game, the moment you move the eyes even slightly, it looks wrong. But then after a while, you can readjust because you're just not used to seeing that face with that new placement. But now we just need the lettering, and then we can put new Ferdinand next to old Ferdinand and show the updated version. We're not gonna do that thick. We're gonna do a rough sort of image for outline for the first. Maybe push this in a little. Push the F up a little. Push this down a little. And there we go. History, I think, like, History Matters was a series I watched, but, like, the style it was didn't really come from History Matters. It came from several channels that did sort of the simple characters. I mean, History Matters is part of the inspiration, but there's also other channels that did more rounded heads and things like this sort of thing. And sort of the first model for the character would have the first sort of test model for the character I had in mind looked like sort of like this. And it was only when I realized I could keep this sort of neck part that it looked adorable enough that it looked still cute and adorable while being far simpler than doing a big bulbous head. So I think the History Matters wasn't a direct inspiration, but it's sort of, I mean, the channel was because I do like the fast-paced history. I do like the simple character designs. Yeah, although he is far more repetitive in things, but it's also the rate of production and everything that that happens. There's also slightly different style in that in the topics we cover and what we can do in the time. So, I mean, it is an inspiration, and I love History Matters work. Oh yeah. Now let's put a copy of old Ferdinand next to new Ferdinand, and this is sort of the style change that waits slightly when I start making the new series. And I just have to get used to things being a bit off-center. Yeah, it's the increasing the size was probably I got new things so I can and more space and stuff, and I decided that I can increase the size of the models, which then allows me to also increase the size of keep the outlines the same, but also increase the possibility for detail in the model itself later on. It also makes it look a bit more crisper without all of these old paint pixels going astray. So you get a far crisper and better looking model in this one. If you look at that one short with Winston Churchill, is the first time that I actually deployed this. Well, I call it version 5 model, but like version 5, it's version 5 because it's the one that came after the one for the one I'm using right now for the live 2D model. That's version 4 of things. But I also wasn't happy with just reusing that because that was on a whole different scale to the it didn't scale the same when you would increase these guys in size. They didn't fit as neatly into the outline. So yeah, this is the new Ferdinand. Now we're going to we can redo the crowns, funnily enough, here and see how it fits on his head, because I had them saved here in this in the character file in order. Oh yeah, we need to do his hat and his beard. Yeah, And we'll redo the crowns here too, and then I'll save them as separate things. Because he will need to be wearing those at some point. For now, we'll put the hat here. We'll need to resize the image to double the size. It looks like nothing's changed, but it has. Then we undo that resizing, and we have his hat. Now the hats can be tricky. The hats can be very tricky when you're trying to do them in a model because they're meant to be seen from very different angles to what they are. Now, the increase in size here allows us to do a little, add a bit more detail to the hat that that didn't look good before. Now let's just see how this fits on the head. Yeah, he's gonna be wearing a lot of red. Well, the Habsburgs tend to, in my series at least, tend to wear a lot of red because that's one of the primary colors, along with this yellow goldish. That's from the original coat of arms, and like color is very important for character identification. And that's where being like historical with the outfit doesn't tend to really work if you need the audience to know who a person is. I have not seen it yet. I've been planning to, but work and other things keep getting in the way. But people are from what I've heard, people are mostly talking about like the opening segment where where there's a map of medieval Hungary, and it extends and it, from what people have said, it extends very ahistorically and ignores some things that are rather important. But yeah, I've heard that it's on TV. I haven't seen it, sadly, yet. Though my dad keeps calling me. My dad's watching, and he keeps calling him Hyundai, just to it's not ignorant. It's just teasing me mostly. I should have. Yeah, I should have kept this size. Shouldn't have I? Let's see if this will connect up top when we reconnect it. We'll do a bit of magic. No, wrong layer. Yeah, I do have a degree. I have a degree in history. Yeah, that tends to... honestly, I sometimes wonder about. I sometimes wonder about modern like historical productions and things because like what I've watched recently, well, recently a month or two ago was a few of the Netflix documentaries on ancient Rome and Alexander and things, and the complete refusal to make things colorful is 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 hurting me. Like, why? These were colorful periods in history. Why just? And you had documentaries from 20 years ago that were completely and utterly fine with using a lot of color. Then you have, then you had interesting moments where you can see the probably underfunding of the project. Because, hold on, was this the same? Oh no, hold on. Is the same as shade of color? Yes, it is. It tends to be. Oh, it's based on a book. I didn't know that. But yeah, that would explain things. That would go a long way towards explaining things. Because what I've been told about some things that happen is just well, I haven't heard that. Was my reaction. But I didn't know if somebody was just retelling things wrong or something like that. We're gonna need to redo the lower part of the outfit here. Hold on, how much damage is this gonna do? Not a lot. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna need to redo the lower part. Oh, no, that went too far. That might be just too low, but let's see if the hat fits. Oh wait, I will need to move him a bit lower, won't I? Where is he? Oh. Oh, wait. That's the outline, that's him. Okay, I can combine this because the outline's there. Might not have wanted to do that with the letters there, but not that pressing. I just lower Ferdinand a bit. Yeah, as we all know, we've all seen the old footage. There's no color. There's no color in film or photography. Okay, that starts to work. I'm getting it's a bit unusual seeing this one in that size, but yeah, that'll work. Now we can get to a few more interesting things. Now the way this is gonna be redone is that the crowns are going to finally get proper outlines and things, because that's been handling of color is something that I've not exactly gotten used to in when I started making these. And so because I would usually work on a gray background, this would look fine, but the moment you put on a white background, it starts especially if you don't have this outline. Sorry, especially if you don't have this darker gold outline, it starts to disappear into the white. So yeah, that's been my mistake of not doing the outlines properly. I mean, in theory, I could also remodel the crown more, redo the crown and make it look more realistic and more proper, but I think that would lose the well, I formed a sort of tradition here right now. With how I formed a sort of tradition with how it looks now, so I'll debate that while I'm doing things. But for now, let's make the outline for the crown of Saint Stephen. I think we'll lower that to minimum. Might need to do this bend in sections. So we'll start off with the outline of this section here, which is how, well, it was sort of how it started off anyway, with the two crowns getting combined into one. Well, it's at least how I wanted to try and illustrate it, but it's gonna look interesting when I'm done with this. Probably going to need to make this in 2 halves too. Or at least 1 half. The problem is fitting it on somebody's head, as it tends to be. Yeah, this is the problem. And how does it fit? Well, we're going to have to do some trial and error. Honestly, of all the humanities degrees and things that you can learn, I think history is probably the best, because you are going to, if you really want to learn stuff, you will learn about everything. You're not going to seal yourself off into one little aspect of social sciences or humanities. You need everything to study history. From literature to sociology to like from chemistry and physics to physics, even trades and things, you need to understand. If you really want to know something in history, you need to start by wanting to know about everything, anything and everything. It is the most holistic of disciplines. So it's going to teach you a lot about humans, it's going to teach you a lot about society, it's going to teach you about anything and everything, and I say it's one of the best degrees that you can get in terms of your own education. If you're looking for a job training course, which is a lot of other degrees. Well, it's not to demean other degrees, but yeah, I would recommend getting a history degree because you are going to, if you really want to learn, if you really want to know something, it is the degree to get. It is the field to study, the field and subject to study. Oh no, I forgot. Layering. Uh, yeah, like I think sometimes getting a degree to getting getting a degree to get a job is not something I'd recommend doing. I mean, because well, it's not really what gets you the job. It never is and never will be, especially not with how some things look today. But you will learn. History is great for learning stuff and learning about everything, and it can be used for your own personal growth and education. It is one of the best subjects to study and get a degree in, is how I would put it. We're going to do something funner now. We're going to separate this layer. We're going to delete this layer. We're going to create one more layer. We're going to glue this here. Oh, wrong side. And now we have two halves that we can put on Ferdinand's head and try and see how it fits. Because you sort of want, when you're doing a crown like this, you might sort of want to be able to put it on a head and let some of the hair and the top of the head shine through these segments. In order to get the effect that he's actually wearing it. We might need to extend it by a pixel or two one way or the other. Or both ways, rather. And then you just extend it here. We'll see what the finished version looks like. This might be a bit too thick for how it looks, but the problem is I can't really tell at this stage because it's still in that very early stage where nothing looks right, so to say. Oh, we're not gonna do that yet. We're not going to... Oh, I forgot to layer it again. Thankfully, I didn't get too far into that. Like, people have a misconception from school that history and studying history is all about memorizing dates and events, and they have this pop quiz vision of history, which is which is just wrong, but I can see why people have an image of it. Like, there's tons of, I mean, there is tons of economics in history, and also one of there's two Nobel prizes that a professional historian can win: literature and economy. So having a background, having an economic understanding and background does open up the possibility of being one of the rare rare historians to ascend ascend that glorious pathway. Uh, uh, I mean, there's also peace, but that tends to have also other. You need to do a bit more than study history in that case. Okay, let's see how this looks without the. Uh, Hold on. Where did I put that line? Where's let's uh let's forget about the cross for a moment. And okay. How long has this been going on for? Oh, 40 minutes already. I didn't I didn't think I'd make it that long. Uh uh well, we're gonna continue this anyway. I can't remember how I based my original concept of the crown of Saint Stephen. Oh yeah, let's narrow down the cross. Well, the outline of the cross. The the bent cross of Saint Stephen is one of those almost sort of happy accidents of history where like bending the cross getting bent made it even more made it iconic, even outside of just even outside of the political historical meaning that it had to the nobility of the realm of Saint Stephen, but well, to the Hungarian nobility, but it's one of those interesting moments that if it was not like if the cross was not bent, it would not have the same meaning and impact that it does now, so to say. Like, it's an instantly recognizable symbol. And it all because somebody's, all because somebody smashed the lid shut too hard. There's actually a great scene in if you watch the Madness of King George, I think it's it's a movie based on the play about well, the madness of George III, and you will see in one of the opening scene how the courtiers well, mishandled the crown after the state opening of Parliament. They throw it around and they just it's a very small touch in things, but it is like this symbol of state just getting randomly tossed around because by people that need to handle it every day. Well, not every day, but on ceremonial occasions. So, because it is one of those things where, at some level, these things, if you're surrounded by them constantly and need to literally work it with them, they tend to possibly become very commonplace. Especially if they don't directly belong to you, and if nobody's creating a fuss about you throwing it around, throwing it around a bit, which is probably what happened with the crown of Saint Stephen getting its cross bent. In that, it just happened. It just happened as part of an everyday routine. Let's move the underlayer. Yeah. I'll need to readjust this a bit later, but let's not worry about that now. Now we need to worry about this entire frontal segment of the crown. Where we're gonna need a few triangles. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what I was worried about. That's how we'll handle it. Probably. Uh, pa, 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 pa. Let's try it without the outline first. And see how it does. If it does work in the old way. It probably will. It's just as long as it's within the new outline. Yeah, I think we'll need to push this section up a bit later and see what happens. And we can do another... Oh, no, I didn't do that. Okay. We'll do it like this. Yeah, the way I did it wasn't exactly symmetrical, but then the whole thing isn't exactly symmetrical either when you... when you look at it. It's one thing about the crown of St. Stephen is that it is still that sort of old, early medieval. It is a Byzantine crown. It's still that old early medieval style where if you plop on enough gems and things that are very uncut, very rough, like on the even the Charlemagne's crown and thing, it is a very distinct style of well, jewelry. It's almost transitioning from that sort of style to a newer one, but it also has, because of its Byzantine origins, it has the Byzantine connections and everything like that. Now, the actual crown also has pictures on it in these sections instead of jewels and gems and everything, but that getting into that level of detail is a bit hard and unnecessary. So I am sort of using a very stylized depiction of the crown. We also have this section. Getting back to the center, which is one of those places where you would have a picture, this part. Now you need to angle it a bit carefully here, because you're also going to have this huge protrusion going up. And I still don't like how I handled the ball here, but that can be fixed. Next, we'll put in this section, which will readjust to be a bit similar. The more it progresses, the more I start to like it. I think I'm going to still move this section a bit up so it's not as thick. But it is what they call, I think, the ugly stage as you make things, because nothing looks right until it is finally done, and you just need to, well, trust yourself that you can get through it. Okay, yeah, that looks far better. Let's see if we cut this in half now. Not that in half, but if we cut this in half. Not cut, but you know what I mean. And then flip it. And then we put it here. Yeah, it does work, I would say. Maybe a few slight adjustments to make it curve up here more, so... But we'll put that in later when we do the arch thing that I did in the old version. Also, probably the cross should be on the front part to make it look a bit less, to get rid of this bulb that I don't like. Yeah, it used to. It honestly used to stress me out how asymmetrical sometimes things look, but I learned to live. I learned to live with, because it looks good. It looks good enough. It looks good, and if I were to start fussing about every little detail, I wouldn't. I would never get done. It's also an interest. It's also like one of the. It's also fun. It's like puzzle problem solving fun for me, and it's worth the effort to draw everything and do these sorts of things. And it's sort of worth the effort for me because I never know what it's going to look like before it's done. I'm not exactly always sure what I want to do until I do it. Okay. Yeah, let's redo the we'll redo the cross on top. Actually, we'll do it like that's the layer of that. So we'll, instead of doing that, we are going to redo, push the cross section, the cross, the cross section. Sorry. Uh, where's the color layer for this? Yeah, here it is. No. No, 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 no. Maybe we just don't have anything here. Maybe that's the better solution. Yeah. Or maybe I just need to look at the real thing for reference at this point. It looks slightly better, but I want a sort of a bit more of a curve here. Okay. No. Let's get back to the first stage. Yeah, the ball on top is very tiny on the real crown. It's just one of the little bulges on the cross. It's more part of the cross than it is on than it is anything else. But the problem is if you're doing a bit of a caricature style like this is, you want that a bit of that emphasis because you can't do what in real life looks like the thin cross of the crown without it like in the old style it would have been almost invisible if I did this on the on this. Like it would have just been a black stick. So maybe. Yeah. Okay. Let's try. Uh-huh. Gonna try and we need to use layer star advantage here. Yeah. Now it looks like this bends off a bit wrong. Hmm. Ooh. Loads. I mean, depending on what sort of a period of archaeology you're looking at. There's all sorts of from. Yeah, I mean, finding a lot, finding a horse. I was about to make a joke about finding a horse alive after 2,000 years was quite a discovery, but I stopped myself for some reason. Uh, it's sort of like archaeological discoveries are constantly being found, especially in well, in areas that are constantly being studied. I think last year, they sort of discovered old new passages in Diocletian's palace in Split, or at least discovered them and began to remodel them during renovations and stuff. Uh oh, yeah. Okay, okay. I know. We'll do this. Then we'll copy that to here. there's of course the famous. There's a lot of also like underwater archaeology that are very fascinating, but they're also more fascinating in the fact how do you get them out without destroying them. the I mean, the sort of thing with the difference between ancient and medieval archaeology is that like ancient old Roman inhabitants actively fled places that they used to live in and left things behind. And while we still live in areas that that we've lived in since the medieval period. So it's kind of hard to find things in places that have been constantly dug up and dug out and plowed and that were under that were constantly being worked on as just part of life. And people tend to treat things that are part of life a bit worse than old archaeological discoveries. Mhm. Like we have one of probably the sad parts is that in the like continental parts of Croatia, even in areas around Zagreb, you still have old houses that were made completely and utterly out of wood that have been just left to rot. And these used to be, well, fancy houses for their time. And nobody's doing anything exactly to preserve those things, but also there's tons of castles and places that need to be put to use or preserved or made to function in some way. Now, there's of course debates on how they should be put into use because not everything can be a tourist attraction. Let's be honest. And I mean the biggest problem always is that there is not enough will or money to do some things about all the things that quote unquote need to be done. And it's always somebody else that should do something about it. Everyone agrees something needs to be done, but nobody agrees who should but everybody also agrees that somebody else should do something about it. Oh, that's a good subject for a comic. Uh mhm. This part is the only part that bothers me. Let's do it up to half. Hmm. That's good. That might work. Oh, might have something there. Okay. Now we might have something. Uh, White Croatia. I mean, there's debate about where it where it even was, and there are somewhere in the like North Carpathian mountains, mountain ranges into Slovakia or Ruthenia, that sort of part. I think. Like if you're playing Crusader Kings 3, you'll see Croatian culture in that sort of rough area present. But I'm not really an expert on that sort of how. I'm not really an expert on that sort of area. Like from it's considered by some clearly to have existed as an entity, and because the but was it really connected to Croats, as in the same Croats that would come to live by the sea, is a very, I mean, it's a very interesting question because the word Croat for a time in the early medieval period seemed to have signified some sort of type of warrior or some sort of warrior peoples that. Hold on. Where's the crown? Oh, yeah. There we go. No, not moving that. I need to move that one. Okay. Some sort of warrior peoples, and it's a word that appears from. I mean, it's a word that appears from Western Europe to. Well, from Croatia proper to Western Europe, even France and things, where you have this sort of almost like distinct type of warrior or some sort of class that exists that's called a Croat, but then sort of disappears later on or merges with something, or things like that tend to happen during the medieval period. A word that clearly signifies something, but we don't know what that something clearly is. Okay, I think I've attempted to solve the problem there, and I think it works somewhat. Maybe if I just extended the cross a bit. Maybe I just lower it. Take the widest part here and just lower it on top here. Then clean up the outline. Oh, okay. I mean, it's sort of whenever you change something, it's gonna look off. And then we have to add the slightly more golden part. Or do that as the rectangle because that... No. I can maneuver that more easily. It bends a little there, but it might be... Okay. I think it works now. Now we just need to add in the blues and reds. Oops, I should probably put that in a separate layer. Actually, yeah, I need to readjust the crown first before I do that. Well, what's this? Yeah, let's... that's the full outline. Oh. Okay, I mean, that doesn't play a part in this, but... that was a layering mistake on my part. Yeah, let's brush this, let's shrink this down a bit. Okay. That brings it back to a... Oh! It does bring it back to its more original shape there. And the last one in the middle. We flip it. Oh, that is... Okay, that looks good. I did not expect that. I'm debating... No, I don't think it... An internal outline would just ruin it, I think. So let's just... Let's crown a king. Does it fit? Yes. I think I will, because something is a bit... Yeah, I think I will, because it looks a bit odd with without them right now. A crown slightly out of order compared to historically. Well, well, a lot of what happened to anything the Republic of Ragusa had basically got seized by the British during the Napoleonic Wars. Is the long and short of it. From their ships to the moment Ragusa is occupied and its ships ordered to sail under the flags of the Kingdom of Italy, it is all of its former wealth and trade and everything is done for. Over. The ships are the ships are hunted down by the British. They are, of course, seized as part of an enemy nation, and that is all the end of the Republic of Ragusa in terms of as a economic power. Any sort of bases or colonies or things that it might have had before then is also seized from what I know. Or their captains and everything just turn themselves in. It's what happens to it would happen to almost everyone from the Dutch ships and colonies to the Dutch ships and colonies of when Napoleon seizes the Netherlands. Well, when the Batavian Republic is proclaimed, and then Napoleon seizes the Batavian Republic. It's everything becomes fair game for the British to strangle anything that has a connection to the French. And when Ragusa is occupied, it's formally annexed into the Kingdom of Italy, and it becomes part of all of its ships and everything become part of an enemy country in terms of the British. And Ragusan ships are all over the world at that point. Yeah, for fear of not falling into French hands, I think the British also seize or stop the Portuguese fleet. They do it to the Dutch. They do it to... well, I think they also do it to, like, the Kingdom of Naples. Although that's a more complicated situation. And admittedly, it's a situation the Napoleon and the French bring upon themselves. Maybe I should do thinner outlines on the red ones. Yeah. Yeah. There's an actually very interesting episode in... there's actually a very interesting episode in 1811 where Napoleon is... where there's a situation where... I mean, it's not really written about, and I'm not sure about it because I've read about it in only one book, and it could just be that unknown, or it's not been studied, or it was studied and it was determined to not have that great of an effect and things. But there is a situation where where Britain is trying to negotiate for grain on the European market. And it's, of course, the continental system was basically not working. There was enough smuggling and trading licenses and everything going around, and French generals making money out of French governors and generals making money out of allowing smugglers and traders to pay them to go around the continental system. But there's an instance where Napoleon himself, thinking that he will have England on its knees, goes out to sell grain to Britain in the middle of a war, thinking in the middle of the war in 1811, thinking that that's the way he will drain the British treasury, because I mean France is also in need of money at that starts to be in need of money at that point. But it is an interesting incident where the French actually sell grain to Britain in the middle of their war in 1811. I think that was in Napoleon, A Political Life, in one of the later chapters, but it isn't exactly expanded upon from what I remember. And I've tried looking it up elsewhere, and nobody really writes about it, but it is an incredible incident if it is true. I mean, it's probably the reason why it's overlooked is what follows in 1812 is an even bigger disaster. But basically, yeah, the continental system never works for Napoleon. Partially because there's too much money in breaking it for a lot of French officials and generals and people of that nature. I think, like, General Massena made... I think that was one of the origins of his... I'm not sure if that was the origin of his quote-unquote Livorno millions, but during his stint in Italy, he made a lot of money by selling trading licenses, which then Napoleon seized from the bank in Livorno. Okay, that looks much better. I'm gonna need to get used to the new style too, because I'm also well, I'm also making it as I go. A far easier crown to make is, of course, the Rice crown here, the Imperial crown. We need to resize it, resize everything. Cut that out. Put it in the new layer. Oh, we're gonna need to move Ferdinand down a bit, but yeah, this is gonna be a much easier to replicate. Because it was already easy enough to make originally. But this was, I think, like the first crown I made for the series, and it's on Charlemagne's head in the very first episode. And then it's gone through a bit of resizing, but it's remained pretty much the same style and thing, although I used the far more simplified version for a long while for the crown of the of the Holy Roman Emperors. I don't think that is really valid, because we know that in the Priory of Vrana, that was under the Knights Hospitalier in Croatia, that was one of the big offices of state in Croatia, that becomes one of the big offices of state in Croatia. We know that there were crowns plural in being kept there for a lot of the medieval period. Now, we don't know which crowns is the problem, but people suspect it is the old Croatian royal crowns. And I mean, the best you get for something like that being officially used is like the crowning of Vladislav of Naples, or maybe like the Charles Robert crowning. The initial Charles Robert crowning is like far more tricky, because he is said to have been crowned by a quote unquote diadem, which some Croatian historians have taken. Oh, it must have been the crown of the Kingdom of Croatia, but it's not exactly something that we'd want perpetuated if it's not true. But some people didn't have a problem with doing that. Oh, sorry. Let's lower Ferdinand a bit to see how this fits. Yeah, the central one will need to be narrowed a bit. I mean, I could also do it like that and place it far more on the... Yeah, we'll see. We'll go with that and see what happens. As far as we know, no, none of that have been identified to be associated with Croatia in particular. The problem there is most likely the problem there most likely is the Turkish wars, where everything from like the fall of Buddha in 26 and 40 is one of the most likely events where things got completely and utterly robbed. Then you have the rest of the wars. Then you have the entire 15th century, quote unquote, interregnum periods, where things could have been stolen and pawned off and sold, and that it's just lost. The only quote-unquote crown that might exist is the one that was made during World War II. But that's suspected for like the puppet, well, for like the puppet state. For the whatever the Italian duke was that was supposed to be crowned as king of Croatia, but was then but had half a brain to not actually take the job. Probably the smartest man in the world at that point. And then it's suspected that he fled with that the Italian royal family during their dethronement and disbarment fled with it, and that it was probably melted for money somewhere in Argentina. But that is the... But no, none of the Croatian royal none of the Croatian medieval royal jewels that we know of. Actually, wait. There is, I mean, it's not Croatian. It's not even royal crown, but it's not real royal jewelry, but it is a crown. There is the crown that was put in the sarcophagus in oh, it's escaping me now, but the crown that was made specifically for a saint by Queen Elizabeth Kotromanic in the 14th century, that's probably the only surviving piece that we could call a crown that was in from the medieval times and in Croatia, but it's from a coastal town that was fairly protected in a sarcophagus meant for the remains of a saint. So that's that never fell to the Ottomans, and that's the reason why it survives. But no, none of the Croatian royal jewelry that we know of survived the medieval period. Or is just lost somewhere in the... not even in the Habsburg vaults, but it probably in some private collection or something, because we just don't know.